sometime in the mid-1980s when I was 13 or 14, I was walking down this street when a siren went off. Everyone around me froze. The entire street fell silent. And that only lasted for a few seconds. The reason we all fell silent is because we thought we had 4 minutes to live. You could feel the tension in the air, that people's hearts literally stopped. It was one of the most frightening moments of my entire life. I don't know why the siren went off, whether it was an accident or an epic scare prank, but growing up in the 1980s, was living with the constant threat of nuclear war. From the papers to movies to books to music to TV to comic books, we were bombarded with this idea that the world could and probably would end at any minute. Just as my parents grew up during World War II, I and millions of others grew up during the Cold War, and it left a mark. But what physical remains are there of the Cold War, which ended, so they tell us, in 1991. We've come here to Harrow, where I grew up, a place that some people would argue that could only be improved by a nuclear attack, to find out and to see what kind of preparations and planning went into protecting the populace during the Cold War, and to ask, how is it different today?
This is the first video in a series exploring the legacy the Cold War left behind. We'll be travelling from Britain to Berlin looking for remnants of the Cold War.
So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, motherfucker! Harrow is northwest London, so it's as far out of London as you can get while still technically being in London. But it also has the benefit of kind of being right by countryside and greenbelt, doesn't it?
Mm. It's like Zone 6.
Zone 6.
For those who care.
But why that's relevant is because it's not central London. So when it comes to the Cold War, why there's a whole load of Cold War shiz here in Harrow.
It might be Zone 5.
That restaurant used to be called Star Burger, and I was having a hamburger in there once and saw the chef pick his nose and eat it.
I wasn't expecting that.
Disgusting. I didn't eat the hamburger and I never ate in there again. So not all of Harrow is a pile of shit. This is one of the nice bits, which is where Harrow began. And it's also the area that Harrow's most famous for, which is, Sanja?
Harrow School.
Harrow School, which some of you may know is where many of our Prime Ministers went to school, as well as the likes of Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, he went here?
Yeah.
Wow, Sherlock.
Robert Peel, who invented the police. But we've come up here to get an overview of London, basically.
Get a good view from here.
Get a good view from here, as Lord Byron, another former pupil, knew, because there's a plaque marking his favourite viewpoint, isn't there? His favourite place.
Yeah, that's true. Lord Byron, who inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah, she lived here as well. Did you know that for a while?
I didn't. What the heck?
Mary Shelley lived in Harrow for a couple of years.
All roads lead to Harrow, whether you like it or not. Undoubtedly, Harrow School's most famous pupil was Winston Churchill. Here in 1941, Churchill gave the famous speech in which he said,
"Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to convictions of honour and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy.
The speech may have been unclear on whether Churchill wanted people to give in or not, but as Prime Minister, he ensured that Britain treated atomic weapons as a strategic priority during the Second World War, by backing Tube Alloys, the secret British programme to develop an atomic bomb. Recognising Britain's limited industrial capacity, he authorised the 1943 decision to merge the programme with the US effort. Britain's scientists were embedded at the heart of the Manhattan Project and left Britain with the expertise to pursue an independent nuclear capability after the war, even when the Americans refused to continue their cooperation. In 1947, Churchill's successor, Clement Attlee, chose to pursue the bomb in secret. The programme centred on weapons design at Aldermaston and plutonium production at Windscale, later Sellafield, two locations we visited in earlier videos, and was driven by a determination to preserve Britain's role on the world stage, despite post-war austerity and a crumbling empire. The British effort culminated in Operation Hurricane, when in October 1952, Britain successfully detonated its first atomic weapon in Australia, becoming the world's third nuclear power. So most people know this place as Harrow on the Hill, possibly the most famous landmark in Harrow. What it's mainly known to locals as is NB.
No, it's not.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
You're right. No.
No.
LONB, Land of the Noisy Birds.
Some noisy birds. Sanja said, "Oh, Land of the Noisy Birds," and I said NB. And Sanja thought that was worth putting on camera. Some of this graffiti is old. There's a 1943.
The 2017 one.
1954.
Oh. Ew.
Right in the middle of the Cold War. 1952 over there.
Where's 1943?
43. Where's that there? We got talking to one of the gardeners at the church up there, who literally we've been talking to him for nearly an hour.
Has it been an hour?
It's been getting on for, it was about 30 minutes, yeah.
Really?
Because
I lost track of time.
Yeah, I know, because he was fascinated. He knew everything about local history and the history of the school. But he did tell us something really interesting about the church up here, because it's basically the highest point in Harrow. And the flagpole, we'll see if we can get a shot of it, is thicker than a normal flagpole because it's actually operated by the RAF, and he claims is full of all sorts of secret stuff. Up there is the supposed secret flagpole, which is catnip for us because it's what we try to do on this channel, which is just find the things that are hiding in plain sight, things you might not know about, things that are just a bit odd or out there, that are just sort of beneath the everyday. We always seem to end up in a graveyard sooner or later in our videos, don't we? Graveyard of a church.
I know. I can't believe we're in a graveyard again.
Well, St Mary's is where Harrow began, basically. We were talking to that guy who told us the whole history of it. I won't bore you with that, but my dad, who was going to factor into this story about the Cold War, and know him and his mates used to dare each other to run through this graveyard at night.
Really?
So, yeah. So this was Lord Byron's favourite spot in his youth. It looked out over London, and he used to come up here while he was attending Harrow School. Lord Byron get one free. Good joke, isn't it?
This was the favourite spot it says, of Lord Byron whilst a pupil at Harrow School between 1801 and 1805.
And his daughter's buried in it. The exact spot of the grave is unmarked, so Lord Byron's daughter's in it. So basically the 50s were into the early 60s were the most dangerous years when people thought nuclear war was likely, which kind of ended in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I probably don't have to recount, where the Soviet Union and America all kind of went, this is mad, quite literally mutually assured destruction. We need to dial it back. And the 80s, everything ramped up. It became, and that was my era really, when the world took a step towards the brink again. What this meant was during the 80s, popular culture just went nuclear war mad. And it really began in 1980 with a documentary presented by Jeremy Paxman on the BBC. That revealed the government's Protect and Survive videos.
Strategy, okay.
Their videos.
Oh, that's when they were released.
They weren't released. The BBC took a risk in putting them out. Protect and Survive was a British government public information campaign developed in the late 1970s and released in 1980, intended to advise the population on how to cope with a nuclear attack. Consisting of pamphlets and short films, it offered practical guidance, improvised shelters, fallout precautions, rationing, how to dispose of a corpse, based on dated civil defence assumptions rather than a modern thermonuclear reality. Its calm instructional tone was widely criticised as unrealistic and patronising, and it quickly came to symbolise the gap between official reassurance and public fear. Rather than reassuring the population, Protect and Survive intensified scepticism about government preparedness and became a cultural shorthand for the inadequacy of any form of civil defence in the nuclear age. But a real turning point for an entire generation was Threads, which was shown on the BBC.
I watched it last night.
Yeah, Sanja grew up in Australia. She had never had the joy of watching Threads. What Threads did is it showed that civil defence planning was pointless. And that was what really opened up a generation's eyes, which we showed it to Sanja last night. And Sanja basically couldn't sleep because she had anxiety.
Paul not only watched Threads, he bought a video copy of it so he could re-watch it.
It affected the whole country. I went to school the next day and the woodwork teacher, instead of having a woodwork lesson, decided to have a debate about Threads.
I did experience that kind of nuclear anxiety even in Australia in the 80s.
You know, you are the home of Mad Max, which
Exactly.
we all know how Australia's going to end up. So this is Pinner, one of Harrow's nicer suburbs, and behind me is Pinner Police Station. Now the reason we've come here is because this police station was a huge part of my nuclear anxiety. It doesn't look like much, but on the roof is a platform. Now when I was growing up, that platform used to have a siren on it, and I knew that in the event of a nuclear attack, that siren would go off. And it was one of a network of thousands of such sirens on police stations, fire stations, in rural areas. Often the sirens would be given to notable locals, such as like pub landlords and the like. And the way it would work was when an attack was detected by RAF Fylingdales up in Yorkshire, they would send the alert to places like this, and they would hit the button, and we would have, if we were lucky, 4 minutes. If we were unlucky and the nukes were being launched by a submarine, we'd have about 30 seconds to get to cover. And every time I went past there as a kid, I would look up at that, and it was on top of that pole that was sticking up. It just felt ominous. And I think it may have dated back to World War II, because a lot of the sirens were repurposed, but they kept it up until around 92, 93. That's when they were all taken down. Basically, the whole infrastructure of the Cold War was dismantled after the fall of the Soviet Union and when the Berlin Wall came down. They just took everything down. They filled in bunkers. They got rid of the Royal Observer Corps listening posts or monitoring posts, which we're going to go and visit one. You look like you have a question for me.
Yeah, was the main reason they started to dismantle all the infrastructure to save money, basically?
They thought, okay, we don't need it now. I mean, there's still nukes in the world. I mean, for a while after the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of those nukes are in the hands of independent countries. Yeah, a lot of those former Soviet countries had nuclear weapons. They were small until things settled down and got sorted out. So I don't think we were safe quite as quickly as they acted like we were. Yeah, some would say we're not safe now. Pinner Police Station is only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so if you get attacked between those days, and only from the hours 10 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. What?
Have you seen this insect?
What the hell? We've got killer insects here.
Asian hornet. An invasive non-native hornet, originally from Asia, it's a highly aggressive predator of native insects and poses a significant threat to honeybees and other pollinators. In 2004, it was accidentally introduced to France, where it has spread rapidly and into neighbouring countries. Since 2016, a number of sightings have been recorded in the UK. It has an entirely dark thorax. It has a dark abdomen. It's got wings. It's got yellow tips to the legs, and it's got a fourth segment, which is yellow and orange. Beware this hornet.
And yet, no warnings about the smooth man.
No warnings about the smooth man.
If the smooth man is in your area, you will hear this noise. This is the noise you will hear. If the smooth man begins his dance, back away slowly. Do not be tempted to join the dance.
We're about half an hour outside of Harrow now, north. If you can hear traffic in the distance, that's because right next to us is the A41. And we're looking for a remnant of one of the key pillars of Britain's civil defence planning. Now, what we're looking for, there aren't many of them left. There used to be about 1,600 or so. And most of them have been destroyed or demolished, and what remains tends to be on private farmland. So we're not sure we're meant to be here. We did drive down a private road. One of the things that's been really clear while researching this video is how little of it there is left. There was you're right, you smell shit.
Well, yeah.
What was I saying? Yeah,
not
so
many
there was
remnants.
a quote I found from someone in English Heritage who was saying that even though it's more recent, the Cold War, than World War II, the relics of the Cold War are disappearing faster than traces of World War II.
Why is that?
There's a poo there.
Watch out.
Which seems insane to me. As this guy was quoted as saying, they were the castles and battlements of the second half of the 20th century. But these were basically the backbone of the volunteer force of the Royal Observer Corps.
The Soviet Union's successful atomic test in 1949 ended the Western Bloc's nuclear monopoly. Britain was forced to confront the reality that Europe and the UK itself were now potential battlegrounds.
The government has decided that in the present state of international tension, you should be told how best to protect yourselves from the dangerous effects of nuclear attack.
Britain shifted to planning for nuclear war as a reality. Civil defence was revived and expanded through organisations such as the Civil Defence Corps, while radar, air defence and early warning systems were modernised.
When the danger from fallout has lessened sufficiently, the civil defence or the police will tell you when you can go outside. Do not go out until you are told it is safe.
The government began serious continuity of government planning, developing protected command sites, hardened communications and plans for governing after a nuclear strike. Nuclear weapons also reshaped public policy more quietly, driving new approaches to secrecy, espionage and information control.
When it looked like there might possibly be some kind of World War III, they basically played on the Blitz spirit that saw us through World War II. So the Royal Observer Corps, which had played a huge role in World War II, spotting enemy aircraft, was given a new role in the nuclear age.
This man and 11,000 highly trained volunteers of the Royal Observer Corps will be on duty to handle the emergency.
How's that then, Bill? That's fine.
We'd just come out of a world war and kind of two quite close together. It makes sense that people would feel that threat more acutely and want to, and you know, there was a huge sense of pride for participating and helping and contributing. So I can see why there would have been so many volunteers wanting to take part and protect their country.
Well, that war thing as well extended to the government's plans, because initially they were pushing for evacuations of cities. By the 80s, that had changed to do not leave your home. If you leave your home, you're going to be shot. It became clear that nowhere would be safe. What do you do? Where do you even go? What's the point? And what's the point of the civil planning other than to give people the feeling that they're doing something useful?
That's a ground burst.
And it's a big one.
Yes, it's an armed group.
The Royal Observer Corps is today a body of 70 full-time officers and 11,000 volunteers, ordinary people who give 2 hours of spare time every week to train for the possibility, however remote, of a nuclear attack. If it ever happened, we'd survive if we knew which areas were safe from fallout.
That's why we were looking down. And now we're going to turn this corner. So we've come to a fork in the road, a spoon in the path, and we are heading down this
more
way.
mud. So I'd be really interested to know is if there's anything near where you live. What's there from the Cold War that you know of in your area? Leave a comment. I know that's a cliche, but seriously, I'm curious. This is my catnip, this stuff. There's a generation that have grown up without that fear. Yeah, my first daughter was born in 1990, year after the Berlin Wall fell, year before the Soviet Union collapsed. And they don't have that same fear of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but it's so true. It was such a huge part of our childhood.
67, 67, 67. Oh, what's flossing? Is it that?
Flossing is from like 10 years ago.
That's it. That's what they look like.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, we found it. I really didn't think we were going to. I thought we were going to be looking for ages.
That is so cool.
So, this is a Royal Observer Corps monitoring post. Hatch is off. Look at that.
If anything was going to happen, I'd be on my way to this monitoring post, same as today, but there wouldn't be much time to take in the view. The Royal Observer Corps man over 800 of these protected monitoring posts. Nowhere in Britain are you more than a few miles from one. 3 of us run number 10 post, and it's linked, like all the others, to one of 25 group controls.
You can see the ladder leading down. It's been filled in, and it's got all rubbish in it.
Oh, there's dog poo bags in there. Charming.
Lovely.
Can you hear me? 10 post. Bomb power indicator reads 1.5.
So the way these works, every ROC post was assigned 3 volunteers from the Royal Observer Corps who would be assigned in the event of a nuclear attack to leave their families, go underground and stay there for up to 2 weeks without knowing what had happened to their families. There are various pieces of equipment under there that would allow them to monitor the size and position of nuclear explosions. But not all their equipment was under there. They had one that was on the surface, and it was basically a metal drum which had photographic paper in it and a tiny pinhole, a bit like a pinhole camera.
1224, pressure 1.5.
Thank you, 10 post.
That's the one. Nuclear burst, 10 post, 1225, bearing 170, elevation 02.
And they'd be able to tell whether it was an air burst or a ground burst, dependent on where the paper had been burnt, effectively. So someone would have to come up, get the piece of paper, put a new bit in case there were other explosions, and go back down. They had half an hour to an hour to do that before fallout hit them. There were, at one point, about 1,600 or so across the entire UK, about 8 miles apart each one. So what they would do is back at the headquarters, they'd triangulate all the different data that they were getting back. What do you think happened after the 2 weeks that they were down there?
Well, what could happen if an explosion had gone off that close to them?
Yeah, there were no plans for what happened after those 2 weeks. These people were expected to volunteer, leave their families, go down there and just stay there for 2 weeks, report back as long as someone was there to receive them, and that was it really. You're on your own. It was insane. It was a system that couldn't work, but it was just, I think, to give people a feeling of doing something.
Yeah.
One of the things that has become clear in sort of researching this is how the Civil Defence Corps and the ROC, it was like a club for them. You know, they got to go and hang out, they made friends, they got to play, you know, war games.
And they felt like they were doing something useful and purposeful, I imagine.
I'm not saying that the Cold War was worse than World War II. You know, my parents literally lived through it. You know, my mum was evacuated. My dad, you know, can remember going into the bomb shelter and under the kitchen table as bombs fell. Look, that's a whole different level of of terror. But with the Cold War, there was just this general background noise that it could happen any minute. So there was always this constant, at least that's how I felt, constant sort of anxiety, because it was so present in the news, so present in pop culture. I was looking last night to see if there had been psychological studies, and there weren't really. No one had really kind of went, what is the effect of this on the younger population?
Yeah.
But there were surveys done.
Yes.
Quite large surveys. It was a third of kids felt powerless, and a third felt there was no future. And so that sort of despair, that kind of hopelessness, you understand why people were given roles or volunteer roles to take away that feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness.
One of the articles that I saw recently was, I think it came out in 2002, but it was talking about interviews they did with teenagers back in the 80s, I believe, who were saying, because they found that there was an increase in drug use, alcohol abuse, and reckless behaviour. And it was because a lot of the teenagers were saying, look, I don't know if I've got a future. I don't know if I've got a tomorrow. So we might as well make the most of the time we've got now.
My dad was in the Territorial Army. I mean, he'd done his national service in Germany. He used to go off at weekends on operations in Europe, in Germany and Austria and Belgium and places. So he used to hang about on army bases. Then my sister joined the RAF. Her first husband was a guy in the United States Air Force. We would go to RAF Lakenheath, where he was based. There were nuclear weapons there. And I remember my dad coming home and telling me one time, oh yeah, I had to go to this place today where I had to sign the Official Secrets Act. And I remember him telling me about a bunker door that was 6 foot thick. So I not only had it in the zeitgeist and the pop culture and the news, I had it at home, but not just British side of it.
You had the American
side of it too.
Oh, up, down, turn around, please don't let me hit the ground. I think I walk alone out by my soul as I go home.
So, from the ROC Monitoring Post, they would send their data from the nuclear blast to places like this, This was Watford Group headquarters, which was responsible for a whole bunch of monitoring posts in this area, and there would be lots of these regional group headquarters around the country. Now this one, believe it or not, which is in just like a regular street, is now a veterinary centre, fixing up animals who have had mishaps, such as choking on a balloon. That's one animal mishap, isn't it? It's an mishap that animals can have, Sanja, isn't it? Can you think of any others?
Eating chalk.
Eating chalk, yeah, common. Especially a teacher's dog. Anyway, this site, which was opened in 1943 when the ROC was just trying to spot German planes, was strengthened during the Cold War. And like so many other places that we're seeing in this video, it has a bunker beneath it. Sanja's too scared to do this shot, which is of the bunker at the back, so she's given it to me to do. So it's that kind of bile-coloured building at the back, the big blast door on it. Wow, that's insane. I'll have a little look closer. We did actually email them and see if they would let us film inside, but I haven't heard back, probably because they're too busy fishing balloons out of dogs. This is the back of it, and that's the blast door. Look at that. So under there is a nuclear bunker, and they would gather up all that information from their monitoring posts that they were responsible for, and they would send it to here. This is Bentley Priory. If you've never heard of it, it's probably one of the most historically important sites from the last 100 years or so. This building is where the Battle of Britain was won from. I mean, also, you know, in the sky, but this was where Fighter Command were based, and Sir Hugh Dowding plotted to win the Battle of Britain. Bentley Priory basically overlooks, well, all of Harrow, but also all of London. So they could see the skies over London as the Germans came in, and they could send up fighter craft. That's not why we're here though. Bentley Priory was for 60 years the headquarters of the Royal Observer Corps. And it's also where the UK Warning and Monitoring Organisation was based. So all of the fallout data, the bomb power data, everything from all the ROC posts around the country and all those headquarters like the one we saw in Watford, it all fed here. It all came here to Bentley Priory, and they would be able to get a full picture of the damage to the UK. It's a big dong, isn't it? Also on D-Day here, Churchill, Eisenhower and the King monitored the events of the D-Day landings from Bentley Priory. So it's incredibly historically important, but also it's now a museum, and it's a museum that's well worth going to. We've been a few times, haven't we?
Yeah, I've been twice.
Twice? I think I've been thrice. They, unfortunately, a few years ago, they redeveloped the site. It's now mainly private homes, but one of the conditions of redeveloping the site by Barratt Homes, not sponsored, was maintaining some of the main building as a museum. But that's not what we're here for. We're here, of course, for Cold War shiz. Sanja just pointed to a guy underneath that Spitfire there, pointed to him and went, "Oh my God, I thought that was a real guy."
It was because he was so still for ages that I then thought he was a statue.
In case you haven't worked it out, it's bloody freezing and wet.
Raining.
Horrible weather. Imagine if all this rain was fallout. It's funny.
That's not a nice thing to imagine. Why would you say something like that?
So as chance would have it, the Bentley Priory Museum has actually got an exhibition on right now that's temporary for the history of the Royal Observer Corps. And among the things you can do and see is you can colour in a Royal Observer Corps monitoring post. How funny is that? They've got coloured pencils, so you can give your kids give that to do, so they can colour in. I don't know what that is. Oh, they've got the inside as well. You can colour in the inside. That's hilarious. what's really cool is they've got, I think this, don't know if this is original or replica, the gear that they actually used at the monitoring posts. So that's what I was talking about, the thing that would sit on top of the hatch that would detect the flash and burn it. You can actually see the pinhole. That, I think, is the bomb power meter. In what is seemingly becoming a bit of a theme with this video, we have, since we filmed the last bit of this, spoken to not one, not two, but three different old men for extended periods of time. It's like they know that they can get me. And we even sat down at a table with two guys for ages telling us about the history of Bentley Priory. I've got to say, this museum is fantastic. It's so little known, staffed mostly by volunteers. If you're in the area, it's so worth a visit. I would recommend it to anyone. I wouldn't have been allowed to join the ROC because the beret, my head's too big. Oh, monsieur. Oh, would you like some of my onions? Would you like my onions? I said onions because I'm a Frenchman and there's Latin. So they had to learn how to write backwards in the ROC because down in the bunker here, they would have these perspex screens. And on one side, you had to get the ROC volunteers. On the other side, you'd have members of the RAF. And it was the ROC volunteers that would get the information. And they had to write backwards all the details of where the bombs were, so that the RAF members could read what it said. I wrote bum, which is a funny word. Oh my God, that was permanent. It's not coming up. Look, there's worse things I could have drawn on there. Look, I am ashamed that I have written bum on there and I can't get it off. The only way I might get it off is by scrubbing. But there's other people in here. If they see me scrubbing at the word bum, they're going to know I was the one that wrote it. I didn't know it was still visible. It might have been a permanent marker. The bunker that they used to use, which was built in World War II, got redeveloped, it got rebuilt for the Cold War era, made a nuclear bunker basically. It got hardened, blast door put on. Unfortunately, it has been filled in. It's the insides is buried now, but the blast door and the entrance to the bunker is still visible. So we're going to have a wander there now.
By the early 1980s, the Cold War had entered a perilous phase. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan hardened rhetoric, and new intermediate-range missiles were deployed across Europe. Britain, under Margaret Thatcher, the milk snatcher, aligned closely with US strategy, hosting cruise missiles and committing to modernise its own deterrent even as public anxiety and protests surged. Tensions were amplified under Ronald Reagan, creating a climate in which miscalculation loomed large. That risk was never more overt than during Able Archer 83, a highly realistic 1983 NATO exercise that rehearsed nuclear escalation. It was misinterpreted by Soviet intelligence as a possible cover for a first strike. And though the incident was kept classified for years, we now know that it brought the world closer to nuclear war than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962.
So here, they would pull together all the data from the Royal Observer Corps monitoring posts and put together that with data from the meteorological office on wind direction, rainfall and other factors that could potentially affect the dispersal of fallout. And apparently one thermonuclear bomb, just one, could cover a third of the whole of the UK with fallout. Just one. Growing up, I think in the 80s, all right, there was probably plenty we didn't know about, but it's become so normalised that these weapons exist, these world-ending weapons exist. I don't know. We don't just do these videos for fun and to get soaked. We do them so people give us money. And you can give us money on our Patreon, but you get stuff for it. Not only exclusives and things, but we are giving away some things that we've bought from this trip. The hydrogen bomb is a bunch of replicas of World War III memorabilia. I can't show these because it's wet. But postcards, I've got postcards, we'll sign them, sign up to our Patreon or become a channel member and you could be in with a chance of winning some of this stuff. I'm going to get in the car. So cold and wet. So wet. Nice. The site we're on now used to be originally Her Majesty's Stationery Office. Actually, my dad worked there, but we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But it then got sold. There used to be a huge Kodak factory, one of the two main Kodak factories in the world. The other one used to be in New York State. This part is now obviously an industrial estate. On this site, there was something called Station Z. Even though the above ground structure has long since been demolished, we know what was under Station Z is still there. You can't get to it, it's been sealed up, but Harrow Council have listed it. So we're going to see if we can see any evidence of it. And we need to go to that corner over there. By the way, it has taken me a week to pinpoint where it is. So
How did you manage to do it in the end?
Old maps, new maps, photographs that I found online, planning applications for this new estate that has been built.
Was it on the planning applications?
Yeah. I don't know if anyone who's watching this video will even care, but I'm glad I managed to find where it was. So we will get as close to it as we can because part of this site is still being built, so I don't know if we can actually get to it. So Station Z was originally built in World War II and it was what was called an Air Ministry Citadel. It had various kind of communications equipment and offices and the like in this, I think it was like a 3 or 4 story building above. Anyway, in the Cold War, it became basically a backup in case of any government buildings were destroyed in London. So if the Air Ministry got displaced from their headquarters in central London, they would decamp to here. The bunker, which we're probably standing above it now, was actually 2 stories underground with like kind of 6 feet of concrete between them. The lower level, according to the paperwork that I read, is flooded now. From what I can tell, one of the entrances was basically here. That's not it. They're basically looking for these black slabs that cover the entrance. But again, this sort of comes back to the thing I was sort of talking about all the Cold War stuff that's disappearing. So this thing's listed, but they haven't turned it into anything. There's no signage, there's no attempts to preserve it in the memory. I find it bizarre. You know, underneath, literally, we are standing above it. A 2-story bunker. And yet, all the people that are living here or gonna live here on this estate haven't got a clue. So I'm gonna take the drone up, see what we can see. I found it, I think.
Oh, get out. Where? Just here?
Yeah, that's it.
You found it?
We bloody found it. Yeah, that's it.
Right next to it. So it's more in the storage facility area.
Yeah, that shed is on the roof. That's on top of it. That's one of the entrances. We found them. This is them.
Amazing.
I can't believe we found them.
That's so cool.
That's
I think either the air vents, but one's got a hatch on it. So it might well be that is the stairs down. So that's the entrance to Station Z.
Wow.
You wouldn't know that's what that was.
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
You
I would
wouldn't
not
know
have a clue.
2 little brick structures.
Yeah,
It's the entrance to a Cold War bunker.
that's insane.
Mad. Did not think we were going to find anything.
That's really cool. And you pretty much found it straight away.
And, you know, I grew up around here, no idea this stuff was here. But I was saying to you in the car when we were driving back here, how I think it's why this channel exists and why we make these sorts of videos, is because I think I grew up with this sense that there was a secret world kind of just hiding out of the corner of our eyes. And you sort of said, yes, spies, we're going to be covering spies soon. And yeah, this sense that there were secrets and things that meant the world was stranger and more mysterious than it appears on first glance. And it was because of all that formative stuff. And that's like, you know, no one would know. Now we're going to head to where my dad actually worked, or the site, because it's not there anymore, it's this. So we just need to go over the other side there. What's left of Kodak? Well, that and the big chimney.
So that's still Kodak.
Well, bits of it, yeah, look. Bits of it, yeah. Wow. Obviously still haven't cleared the site fully. It joined the HMSO, Her Majesty's Stationery Office, where my dad basically worked his entire adult life. Obviously he was also in the Territorial Army, but HMSO, if you don't know, is basically the government's printers, basically. So they printed government documents. There's one as well as an HMSO, I thought, or used to be, I think in Norwich, and there's one in Gateshead, because there was a possibility that we were going to move up to Gateshead when I was a kid. But one of the things he did used to print, because he always used to bring them home, was telephone directories. So he'd bring those home. But other things that the HMSO printed was Protect and Survive. They also gave out, prior to that, Advising the Household on Protection Against Nuclear Attack. This was from 1963, so this predated the Protect and Survive booklet. But having gone through it, it's not massively different to what they were saying with Protect and Survive. Basically, build a bunker in your house. That's the main thing. And whitewash your windows. Make sure you've got enough food. And this, the Protect and Survive, first use of that phrase, I guess, from 1950, printed by the London His Majesty's Stationery Office. Civil Defence Manual of Basic Training. Now this is obviously a reproduction, but it contains in there volumes that were handed out to the Civil Defence Corps, telling them basically how to rescue people from collapsed buildings, how to put out fires, first aid, that sort of thing. But what it also has in here, atomic warfare. How insane is that? Which had pictures like that in it. Whereas previously it was like, oh, how to stop someone choking. Oh, how to put out a fire. How to bandage someone's knee. And then suddenly you're dealing with chapters on the heat flash. And this was just handed out to just kind of regular people. You know, just regular people who had signed up to be volunteers in the Civil Defence Corps. It was insane. Given out in 1950, and I don't know. It's just insanity. It was just insanity. At HMSO, I visited once when I was a really little kid. It was a really old Victorian building that shut down in the early 1980s. My dad went to work in central London then, helping to print the Royal Hansard. But I remember going into the HMSO where these things were printed, and it was really Victorian inside. I remember kind of wrought iron. Like lots of kind of ornate wrought iron, but these printing presses with these huge drums of paper and people typesetting manually, you know, kind of putting metal letters out, and then it was, you know, so primitive compared to what people do now. And I had no idea that it was them that were printing protect and survive and the like. What did the big chimney say to the little chimney?
You're too young to smoke.
Unless there's a nuclear war. Come on, let's go to the next place. Where we've come now is Roger Bannister's Sports Centre. We used to go and have sports days there, little knowing there's a nuclear bunker right here, like next to it. Not any old nuclear bunker. This was the headquarters of Middlesex County Civil Defence Corps. In the event of nuclear war, volunteers would decamp to this place and they would coordinate basically whatever efforts needed to be done to protect the public in regards to fallout, food, law. The guy who was being charged, and it was normally a guy, let's face it, basically had dictatorial powers. They had unlimited powers to enact martial law and do whatever they could to ensure the safety of the local area. It's now just used for, I mean, it's not used for anything by the looks of it. It's boarded up, but for a while Roger Bannister's just used it as storage for like putting javelins and quoits in there. Quoits, you don't hear the word quoits anymore. What even is a quoit?
It's a thing you throw, isn't it?
Is it the ring?
The
rubber
ring thing,
A
yeah.
quoit. Why don't people talk about quoits? That's another thing that's ended. That ended with the Cold War. Quoits. Do kids use quoits now?
Oh, my ancient history teacher was called Mrs. Coit. Shout out to Mrs. Coit.
Does she have like just a round head with a hole in the middle? Big round rubber head. That's not really relevant, is it? So let's go and have a look. I mean, it says unauthorised entry to this site is strictly prohibited. Unfortunately, the sign is slightly dirty, so I wasn't able to read it clearly.
Right.
I got excited for a moment because the lock doesn't have a padlock on it. Thought we could get in, but no. I think it's been nailed shut. Basically a kind of L-shaped building with underground areas as well, reinforced.
How far
concrete.
deep underground does it go? Do you know?
This one I'm not sure. I mean, obviously deep enough that theoretically you could survive a nuclear attack. But in there they'd have, radios, communication equipment. From Threads, we saw Threads, we saw one, didn't we, a civil defence control centre. But of course, in the event of in a nuclear war, there was no guarantee anyone would even show up. They weren't allowed to bring their family down with them. Everything I've seen about civil defence planning, should it happen, is basically our lives would be controlled by civil servants, counsellors. Basically the whole civil defence thing was a classic case of just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's all it was. That's all it was. It was just, busy work. I don't think there's going to be a nuclear ever. I don't. I think there might be accidents. I think there might be limited use of them. I don't foresee a time, unless there is a complete madman in charge, of anyone pushing that button. Because there is nothing to be gained from a nuclear war. There is nothing. What there is to be gained from is the deterrent, which stops skirmishes or stops things spilling over into a conventional war or between superpowers. That is the purpose of the nuclear deterrent. What it isn't for use. It's the threat of it. Doesn't take away from the fact that I didn't think that as a kid. I thought it was an inevitability growing up. I was trying to set that up. I was trying to get to a point about going to extinct, because you could pan across to the fact that there's a load of dinosaurs behind me. I was trying to build, and I didn't do it very well. Here's something, blah, 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 maybe we all deserve to go extinct for inventing nuclear weapons or something. Anyway, there's some dinosaurs.